Namo Amida Butsu. Sections 4, 5, 6, 8, 9 and 10. The story of Dharmakara becoming Amida Buddha. Now let us see what Shakyamuni told us about Amida Buddha and his Pure Land. In section 4 of the Larger Sutra, he first enumerates many Buddhas of the past eons of time who appeared in samsara to teach the Dharma. Quote, in the distant past, innumerable, incalculable, and inconceivable kalpas ago, end quote. Doing so, he showed to us that human history, as we know it, is only a very small fraction of the endless and inconceivable time of the universe, and that the various world systems and beings living in them had existed before the appearance of this earth. So, he mentioned 52 great Buddhas who appeared in samsara, taught the Dharma, and entered nirvana before the story of Amida actually happened. After these 52 Buddhas, another great Buddha named Lokeshvararaja appeared, still in a distant and impossible to explain time and place. Quote, then there appeared a Buddha named Lokeshvararaja, the Tathagata, Arhat, fully enlightened one, possessed of wisdom and practice, well gone one, knower of the world, unsurpassed one, tamer of beings, teacher of gods and humans, and enlightened and world-honored one. End quote. During the time and place of this Buddha there lived a king who, after hearing his teaching, renounced the throne and became a monk or bhikshu named Dharmakara. Quote, at that time there was a king who, having heard the Buddha's exposition of the Dharma, rejoiced in his heart and awakened aspiration for highest, perfect enlightenment. He renounced his kingdom and throne and became a monk named Dharmakara. End quote. As the sutra tells us, this monk, Dharmakara, was already a superior person when he went to see Lokeshvararaja Buddha. Quote, having superior intelligence, courage, and wisdom, he distinguished himself in the world. He went to see Tathagata Lokeshvararaja, knelt down at his feet, walked around him 3 times, keeping him always on his right, prostrated himself on the ground, and putting his palms together in worship, praised the Buddha. End quote. Then, after a few verses of praise towards Lokeshvararaja, he informed him about the spiritual decision he took to become a Buddha himself, for the sake of all sentient beings. Quote, I resolve to become a Buddha, equal in attainment to you, O holy King of the Dharma, to save living beings from birth and death, and to lead them all to liberation. End quote. And in fulfilling his aspiration, he mentions the creation of a special land. Quote, when I've become a Buddha, my land shall be most exquisite. End quote. Where to bring sentient beings everywhere and make them perfectly happy. Quote, those who come from the 10 directions will find joy and serenity of heart. When they reach my land, they shall dwell in peace and happiness. End quote. To make them perfectly happy means, of course, to help them attain nirvana, his land being in fact a manifestation of nirvanic bliss and freedom. Quote, the seat of enlightenment will be supreme. My land, being like nirvana itself, will be beyond comparison. End quote. After he said the above words, he invites Lokeshvararaja Buddha and all Buddhas to see into his mind and heart and become witness to the truth of his aspiration. Quote, I beg you, the Buddha, to become my witness and to vouch for the truth of my aspiration. The world-honored ones in the 10 directions have unhindered wisdom. I call upon those revered ones to bear witness to my intention. Even though I must remain in a state of extreme pain, I will diligently practice, enduring all hardships with tireless vigor. End quote. As Dharmakara needed a practice to fulfill his aspiration to become a Buddha and establish a special land or realm to bring all beings to nirvana, he also asked Lokeshvararaja Buddha for guidance. Quote, having spoken these verses, Bhikshu Dharmakara said to the Buddha Lokeshvararaja, respectfully, world-honored one, I announce that I have awakened aspiration for the highest perfect enlightenment. I beseech you to explain the Dharma to me fully, so that I can perform practices for the establishment of a pure Buddha land, adorned with innumerable excellent qualities. So please teach me how to attain enlightenment quickly, and to remove the roots of the afflictions of birth and death for all." End quote. More exactly, he asked Lokeshvara Raja to show him all the Buddha lands of the 10 directions, so that he can better know what to do and how to practice to create his own Buddha land. Quote, "I sincerely beseech you, world-honored one, to explain in detail the practices by which Buddha Tathagatas established their pure lands. After I hear that, I wish to practice as instructed, and so fulfill my aspirations." End quote. As Shakyamuni Buddha told us in the Larger Sutra, Lokeshvara Raja Buddha recognized Bhikshu Dharmakara's noble and high aspirations, and explained in detail the greater and lesser aspects of 210 kotis of Buddha lands, together with the good and evil natures of heavenly and human beings living there. He revealed them all to the bhikshu, just as he had requested. Then, quote, "Having heard the Buddha's exposition of the glorious Pure Lands and also having seen all of them," end quote, Dharmakara, quote, "resolved upon his supreme unsurpassed vows," end quote. At this point, the sutra tells us again, for the second time, that Dharmakara was not an ordinary practitioner when he resolved to make his vows. Quote, "His mind being serene and his aspirations free of attachment, he was unexcelled throughout the world." End quote. As Shakyamuni told us, Dharmakara contemplated the vows he was about to make for 5 full kalpas, and then he chose the necessary practices to fulfill them. Quote, "For 5 full kalpas, he contemplated the vows and then chose the pure practices for the establishment of his Buddha land." End quote. To practice sitting meditation for even 5 hours a day is an extremely difficult job for any practitioner of our times, not to mention to sit for 1 day, 7 days, a few months, or a year. But to contemplate continuously for 5 full kalpas is truly beyond our capacity to understand. No wonder then that, hearing about the time Dharmakara spent in contemplation, Ananda immediately asked Shakyamuni to specify how long was the lifespan of beings who belonged to the time and land of Lokeshvara Raja. Quote, Ananda asked the Buddha, "How long was the lifespan of beings in the land of Buddha Lokeshvara Raja?" The Buddha replied, "The length of life of that Buddha was 42 kalpas." End quote. So, after 5 kalpas of contemplation, Dharmakara Bodhisattva adopted the pure practices that had led to the establishment of the excellent lands of 210 kotis of Buddhas. Thus, being sure about the vows to take and what practices to follow, he went to inform Lokeshvara Raja Buddha. Quote, "When he has finished this task, he went to the Buddha, knelt down at his feet, walked around him 3 times, joined his palms in worship, and sat down. He then said to the Buddha, 'I have adopted the pure practices for the establishment of a glorious Buddha land.'" End quote. Having heard the Dharmakara's wonderful vows, Lokeshvara Raja was overjoyed and asked him to proclaim them to the entire assembly. Quote, "The Buddha said to him, 'You should proclaim this. Know that now is the right time. Encourage and delight the entire assembly. Hearing this, other bodhisattvas will practice this Dharma and so fulfill their innumerable great vows.'" The bhikshu replied, "I beg you to grant me your attention. Now I will fully proclaim my vows." End quote. So the entire section 7 of the Larger Sutra contains the list of the 48 vows of Dharmakara. A detailed explanation of all these vows will be made in the next chapter, but for the moment I continue with a story told in the sutra. After proclaiming the vows, Dharmakara, the future Amida Buddha, summarized his aspiration in verses and restated his resolution to attain Buddhahood for the sake of all beings. Specifically, he emphasized again that he will be a universal savior. He will transform his Buddha name in a universal vehicle of salvation, which will be heard and said by all beings. He will send his supreme light everywhere in the universe, attracting all beings to him, like an immense magnet, trying to make everybody entrust to him and accept his gift of salvation. Attain supreme wisdom and supreme or divine means of salvation, acting like a true sovereign of the three worlds. Become the supreme teacher of all beings, including devas or gods and humans. Transfer his perfect merits and virtues to all those who entrust to him, thus making them capable of attaining birth in his land. Practice ceaselessly, without any attachments to the ego. Endure any hardships for the sake of fulfilling his vows. Quote, I have made vows unrivaled in all the world. I shall certainly reach the unsurpassed way. If these vows should not be fulfilled, may I not attain perfect enlightenment. If I should not become a great benefactor in lives to come for immeasurable kalpas to save the poor and the afflicted everywhere, may I not attain perfect enlightenment. When I attain Buddhahood, my name will be heard throughout the 10 directions. Should there be any place where it is not heard, may I not attain perfect enlightenment. Free of greed and with profound mindfulness and pure wisdom, I will perform the sacred practices. I will seek to attain the unsurpassed way and become the teacher of devas and humans. With my divine power, a great light, illuminating the worlds without limit, and dispel the darkness of the 3 defilements. Thus I will deliver all beings from misery, having obtained the eye of wisdom. I will remove the darkness of ignorance. I will block all evil paths and open the gate to the good realms. When merits and virtues are perfected, my majestic light will radiate in the 10 directions, outshining the sun and the moon, and surpassing the brilliance of the heavens. I will open the Dharma storehouse for the multitudes, and endow them all with treasures of merit. Being always among the multitudes, I will proclaim the Dharma with the lion's roar. I will make offerings to all the Buddhas, thereby acquiring roots of virtue. When my vows are fulfilled and wisdom perfected, I shall be the sovereign of the 3 worlds. Like your unhindered wisdom, O Buddha, mine shall reach everywhere, illuminating all. May my supreme wisdom be like yours, most honored one. End quote. The last verse of this hymn, sung by Dharmakara after proclaiming his vows, is of extreme importance. It says, quote, if these vows are to be fulfilled, let this universe of 1,000 million worlds quake in response, and let all the devas in heaven rain down rare and marvelous flowers. End quote. What Dharmakara actually did here was to ask all existence to bear witness to his honesty and supreme dedication in bringing his vows to fulfillment, and transform them into active ways for the salvation of sentient beings. Shakyamuni told to Ananda that, quote, as soon as Bhikshu Dharmakara spoke these verses, the entire earth quaked in 6 ways, and a rain of wonderful flowers fell from heaven, scattering everywhere. Spontaneous music was heard, and a voice in the sky said, surely you will attain highest perfect enlightenment. End quote. Imagine that you are so sincere that you produce powerful earthquakes, that everything around you is vibrating due to the power of your dedication. Of course, nobody can do that, but some honest people do indeed generate a smaller or greater reaction, like a vibration in others, and you might have felt something similar in the presence of such a person. Everyone has his or her charisma, and some can spontaneously generate a certain level of trust in others. But who can really have such a convincing power that they can shake the entire universe, make flowers fall spontaneously from the realms of the gods, and universe sing or voices be heard from the sky? So here we read about a spontaneous and extremely powerful reaction from the entire universe to the honesty and dedication of Dharmakara. Everybody trusting automatically that he will successfully attain Buddhahood, that is, become Amida Buddha, and fulfill his vows. However, according to Shinran, there is still something more here, and this is extremely important. That voice from the sky was not an ordinary one, like the voice of some unenlightened god, but the voice of Dharmakara, or ultimate reality beyond forms and concepts. It was the voice, the manifestation, the reaction of ultimate reality itself, the inconceivable Dharmakaya. According to Shinran, there are 3 kinds of witness to Dharmakara and his vows, especially his primal vow, and subsequently to Amida Buddha, each testimony given according to the three bodies or aspects of all Buddhas. 1. Witness in regard to Dharmakara, or ultimate reality body of all Buddhas. Witness of Sambhogakaya, or fulfilled body, which refers to all Buddhas, or Tathagatas, of the 10 directions. And 3. Witness of Nirmanakaya, or the transformed body, which refers specifically to Lokeshvara Buddha, in whose presence Dharmakara made the aspiration to become Amida and proclaimed the 48 vows. Quote, in the giving of witness to the primal vow, there are 3 Buddha bodies. The witness of Dharma body, or ultimate Dharmakaya. The Larger Sutra states, from the sky, a voice declared in praise, you shall decidedly and without fail attain the supreme enlightenment. The witness of fulfilled bodies, that is Sambhogakaya Buddhas. This refers to the Tathagatas of the 10 quarters. The witness of transformed bodies, or Nirmanakaya Buddhas. This refers to Lokeshvara Buddha. End quote. So, here is another indication, the third until now, that Dharmakara was not an ordinary person when he made his vows and aspirations. What kind of ordinary monk or bodhisattva in aspiration can generate such a reaction from the whole universe and from the Dharmakaya, or ultimate reality itself? Shakyamuni himself said, after presenting the above verses of Dharmakara, that such vows have never been proclaimed in the world before by anybody, as they are great vows, true, unfailing, and unsurpassed in the whole world. Then, after this episode, Shakyamuni described the various practices Dharmakara engaged in for inconceivable and innumerable kalpas, in order to become a Buddha and manifest his pure land. Quote, then, Ananda, after proclaiming and establishing those universal vows in the presence of Buddha Lokeshvara before the multitude of beings, including the 8 kinds of superhuman beings such as devas and dragon spirits, and also Mara and Brahma, Bhikshu Dharmakara was solely intent on producing a glorious and exquisite land. The Buddha land that he sought to establish was vast in extent, unsurpassed and supremely wonderful, always present and subject neither to decay nor change. During inconceivable and innumerable kalpas, he cultivated the immeasurable meritorious practices of the Bodhisattva path. End quote. This is extremely important because it shows that the pure land which emerged from the practices of Dharmakara when he became Amida Buddha is always present, as the passage says, which means it is always available, including now, when we are reading these lines, and will be available forever in the never-ending future, as it is subject neither to decay nor change. This is another argument that the Pure Land is not an element of mythology, but an ever-present reality, a true and real enlightened place. The sutra continues with the enumeration of the practices followed by Dharmakara in the process of becoming Amida Buddha. Quote, he did not harbor any thought of greed, hatred, or cruelty, nor did he allow any ideas of greed, hatred, or cruelty to arise. He was unattached to any form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or idea. Possessed of the power to persevere, he did not avoid undergoing various afflictions. Having little desire for his own sake, he knew contentment. Without any impure thought, enmity, or stupidity, he dwelled continually in tranquil samadhi. His wisdom was indestructible, and his mind free of falsehood and deceitfulness. With expressions of tenderness on his face, and with kindness in his speech, he spoke to others in consonance with their inner thoughts. Courageous and diligent, strong-willed and untiring, he devoted himself solely to the pursuit of pure Dharma, thereby benefiting a multitude of beings. He revered the 3 treasures, respected his teachers and elders, and thus adorned his practices with a great store of merit. By so doing, he enabled sentient beings to partake of them. He dwelled in the realization that all dharmas are empty, devoid of distinctive features, and not to be sought after, and that they neither act nor arise. He thus realized that all dharmas are like magical creations. End quote. When the word dharma is used with a small d, it refers to all existence and phenomena in general. When it is used with a large or capital D, like in Dharma. It means the Buddha's teaching. So, in this case, the passage makes reference to the fact that Bodhisattva Dharmakara realized ultimate reality and dwelled constantly in it, which made him understand that dharmas or phenomena of samsaric existence are, quote, empty, devoid of distinctive features, and not to be sought after, and that they neither act nor arise. He thus realized that all dharmas are like magical creations, end quote. This is a very important Mahayana Buddhist concept, which, in short, refers to the fact that all phenomena of samsaric existence, dharmas, are ultimately void or empty of their own existence because they come into being according to various causes and conditions. In contrast to this, the Buddha nature, or ultimate Dharmakaya, is the only existence reality which is not void or empty of itself, but only empty of samsaric phenomena, empty of delusion, empty of suffering, empty of ignorance. Buddha nature does not depend on causes and conditions, so in this sense it is not empty or void, but truly existent, the only truly existent reality. Such a teaching is present in many Mahayana sutras like Mahayana Mahaparinirvana Sutra, Tatthagarbha Sutra, Sutra of the Great Dharma Drum, Srimala Lion's Roar Sutra, Angulimala Sutra, etc., and is again taught here in the Larger Sutra. From the point of view of ultimate reality or Dharmakaya, Buddha nature, the various phenomena of samsaric existence are like the magical creations and are seen as neither act nor arise, because they do not have a real permanent existence. For Dharmakara Bodhisattva, such an understanding of the emptiness of all phenomena of samsaric existence versus the true reality of ultimate Dharmakaya or Buddha nature was not an intellectual one, the product of mind categories and rationalizations, but a genuine realization in which he dwelt constantly. But having access to this true reality, he could then manifest his enlightened realm in accordance with his vows. Among other practices Dharmakara engaged in, Shakyamuni mentioned, quote, he avoided all wrong speech that would bring harm upon himself or others or both. He engaged in right speech that would bring benefit to himself or others or both. He abandoned his kingdom and renounced the throne, leaving behind wealth and sensuous pleasures. Practicing the 6 paramitas himself, he taught others to do the same. During innumerable kalpas, he accumulated merit and amassed virtues. Wherever he was born, an immeasurable store of treasure spontaneously appeared as he wished. He taught countless sentient beings and guided them on the path of highest true enlightenment. He was reborn as a rich man, a lay devotee, a member of the highest caste of noble family, or Brahmin, a Kshatriya king, a wheel-turning monarch, a king of one of the 6 heavens in the world of desire, or even higher, as a Brahma king. He revered and worshipped all Buddhas by making the 4 kinds of offerings to them. The merit he thus acquired was indescribably great. Fragrance issued from his mouth as from a blue lotus flower, and every pore of his body emitted the scent of sandalwood, which permeated innumerable worlds. His appearance was majestic, and his physical characteristics and marks were truly wonderful. From his hands, inexhaustible treasures, clothes, food and drink, rare and exquisite flowers and incense, silk and canopies, 8 banners, and other ornaments were produced. In such manifestations he was unrivaled among all heavenly and human beings. He thus attained command of all dharmas, or phenomena. End quote. Then Ananda asked Shakyamuni a direct and very important question for us. Quote, Ananda asked the Buddha, has Bodhisattva Dharmakara already attained Buddhahood and then passed into Nirvana, or has he not yet attained Buddhahood, or is he dwelling somewhere at present? End quote. The Buddha replied to Ananda, quote, Bodhisattva Dharmakara has already attained Buddhahood and is now dwelling in a Western Buddha land called Peace and Bliss, 100,000 kotis of lands away from here. End quote. Ananda further asked the Buddha, quote, how much time has passed since he attained Buddhahood? End quote. The Buddha replied, quote, since he attained Buddhahood, about 10 kalpas have passed. End quote. It is very important to mention that this is not the only time when Shakyamuni confirms that Dharmakara attained Buddhahood and became Amida Buddha or Amitayus or Amitabha Buddha. In the smaller Amida Sutra, Shakyamuni also said to Shariputra, quote, "The Buddha then said to elder Shariputra, if you travel westward from here, passing 100,000 kotis of Buddha lands, you will come to the land called Utmost Bliss, where there is a Buddha named Amitayus. He is living there now, teaching the Dharma." End quote. As Shakyamuni confirms, Dharmakara already attained Buddhahood, and from then on in the Larger Sutra or the Smaller Sutra and Contemplation Sutra, he no longer calls him by this name, but Amitayus, which means infinite life, or Amitabha, infinite light. These two aspects, infinite life, or Amitayus, and infinite light, or Amitabha, are merged into the word Amida, which means the Buddha of infinite life and infinite light. His infinite life is the effect of the 13th vow, which he made when he was Dharmakara Bodhisattva, while the infinite light is the effect of the 12th vow. So we cannot separate Amitayus, or infinite life, from Amitabha, infinite light, because there are two aspects of the same Buddha. In section 4 of the smaller Amida Sutra, Shakyamuni explained this to Shariputra. Quote, "For what reason, Shariputra, do you think that Buddha is called Amitabha?" Shariputra, the Buddha's light shines boundlessly and without hindrance over all the worlds of the 10 directions. It is for this reason that he is called Amitabha. Again, Shariputra, the lives of the Buddha and the people of his land last for innumerable, unlimited, and incalculable kalpas. It is for this reason that the Buddha is called Amitayus." End quote. Shakyamuni tells us another important aspect about Dharmakara, who became Amida Buddha. He is now dwelling in a Western Buddha land called Peace and Bliss, which is to be found not here, but 100,000 kotis of lands away from here. This is extremely important, as it shows that there is a clear distinction between this world with its unenlightened beings and the Pure Land. Shakyamuni did not explain Amida and his Pure Land in ultimate terms, and did not say they are to be found in one's heart, mind, or here and now, as some nowadays deluded scholars are trying to convince us. On the contrary, Dharmakara, who became Amida Buddha, is dwelling in his Pure Land, outside of this samsaric realm. Next, the fact that Amida is now dwelling in his Pure Land also shows that he is active now in bringing all beings to his realm. This now is everlasting, and is referring both to the time when Shakyamuni delivered that discourse or sutra, and also to the time of Shantao, Honen, Shinran, Renyo, we in the 21st century, and the future generations that will come after us. Amida is a Buddha of the present in the sense that he has already attained Buddhahood and will act forever for the salvation of all beings. We must not forget that Amida is also the Buddha of infinite life, so for him now is without end. After confirming Dharmakara's attainment of Buddhahood, Shakyamuni makes a general presentation of the Pure Land, so as to assure the audience that the Pure Land too came into existence as a consequence of this attainment. Quote, he continued, "In that Buddha land the earth is composed of 7 kinds of jewels, namely gold, silver, beryl, coral, amber, agate, and ruby, that have spontaneously appeared. The land itself is so vast, spreading boundlessly to the farthest extent, that it is impossible to know its limits. All the rays of light from those jewels intermingle and create manifold reflections, producing a dazzling illumination. Those pure, superb, and exquisite adornments are unsurpassed in all the worlds of the 10 directions. They are the finest of all gems, and are like those of the 6th heaven. In that land there are no mountains such as Mount Sumeru and the encircling adamantine mountains. Likewise, there are neither oceans nor seas, and neither valleys nor gorges. Through the majestic power of the Buddha, however, any of them will appear if one so wishes. Furthermore, there are no hells, no realms of hungry ghosts, no realms of animals, and no other states of affliction. Neither do the 4 seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter exist. It is always moderate and pleasant, never cold or hot." End quote. Although the adornments of the Pure Land are described in terms related to human language to help us make an idea about them, in fact, they surpass any worldly samsaric equivalents, and are pure and unsurpassed in all the worlds of the 10 directions. For adornments to be pure, it means that they are not the product or manifestation of unenlightened karma, nor part of samsara. So the Pure Land is not just another heaven, but an enlightened place. The fact that the Larger Sutra is filled with detailed descriptions of the Pure Land, and the land itself is given a direction, the Western Buddha land called peace and bliss, shows that Amida's Pure Land is not a metaphor, but a real place in which people can actually aspire to be born after death. Some say that the direction west and the marvelous descriptions of the Pure Land are a proof for its non-existence, or for its existence as a symbol or metaphor only. But the truth is that by making the effort to describe in many words the wonders of the Pure Land, and by pointing to a direction where that land is located, Shakyamuni wants to emphasize its actual existence as a place where sentient beings should aspire to be born without worry and doubt. It is as though I speak to you about a beautiful park I would like you to visit. If I tell you it is there in the west part of town, and I'll start describing it to you, then you will have no doubt about its existence, and you will wish to see it. It is the same with the expression Pure Land of the West or Western Buddha Land. The fact that the Pure Land has no oceans nor seas and neither valleys nor gorges indicates that it has no obstacles for its inhabitants. As such, landscapes are usually considered part of samsaric states of existence. Of course, if the Pure Land dwellers wish such forms to appear, they will be manifested instantaneously through the power of Amida Buddha, who actually sustains that land and everything in it. Quote, through the majestic power of the Buddha, however, any of them will appear if one so wishes. End quote. But these would also be enlightened forms, and not samsaric ones, which lead to attachments or difficulties. Also, the non-existence of the 4 seasons, quote, neither do the 4 seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter exist, end quote, can be interpreted in the same way. The fact that in the Pure Land it is always moderate and pleasant, never cold or hot, is a clear indication that it is a nirvanic realm. This is further emphasized in the passage, quote, there are no hells, no realms of hungry ghosts, no realms of animals, and no other states of afflictions, end quote. By no other states of afflictions, it is pointed out that there are no realms of the gods, demigods, or humans too, as these are also contained in the cycle of samsaric existence, just like the realms of hell, animals, and hungry ghosts or pretas. The question Ananda asked when Shakyamuni made this general description is also related to the fact that the Pure Land is not an ordinary, pleasant or unpleasant realm, sustained by the karma of unenlightened beings. Quote, then Ananda asked the Buddha, if, world-honored one, there is no Mount Sumeru in that land, what sustains the heaven of the 4 kings and the heaven of the 33 gods? The Buddha said to Ananda, what sustains Yama, which is the 3rd heaven of the world of desire, and other heavens up to the highest heaven of the world of form? Ananda answered, the consequences of karma are inconceivable. The Buddha said to Ananda, inconceivable indeed are the consequences of karma, and so are the worlds of the Buddha. By the power of meritorious deeds, sentient beings in that land dwell on the ground of karmic reward. This is why there is no Mount Sumeru in that land. End quote. Quote, Ananda continued, I do not doubt this myself, but have asked about it simply because I wish to remove such doubts for the benefit of sentient beings in the future. End quote. Mount Sumeru is a cosmological mountain, like an axis of the world. Every samsaric world, sometimes called a Sumera world, which contains the various realms or dimensions of hells, hungry ghosts, animals, humans, asuras, and gods, as a Mount Sumeru, or an axis in relation with which all the 6 planes of existence until the heaven of the 33 gods are described. The godly planes of existence from the heaven of the 33 gods upwards, including the Yama heaven, are located above this Sumeru mountain or axis. In the passage quoted previously, Shakyamuni explains to Ananda that just like those godly realms exist without a Sumeru mountain, and solely on the basis of the karma of beings born there, The inhabitants of the Pure Land, who are beyond gods or any samsaric being, exist on the basis of the karmic transference of merits from Amida Buddha. In fact, the whole Pure Land is manifested and sustained by the enlightened karmic power of Amida Buddha. This is, of course, inconceivable and impossible to understand with our limited minds, as the sutra says. The following are important footnotes for sections 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10, the story of Dharmakara becoming Amida Buddha. The first footnote deals with the many Buddhas of the past aeons of time who appeared in samsara to teach the Dharma. Quote, in the distant past, innumerable, incalculable, and inconceivable kalpas ago, a Tathagata named Dharmakara appeared in the world, having taught and freed innumerable beings and led them all along the way of enlightenment. He passed into nirvana. Next appeared a Tathagata named Far-Reaching Illumination. After him came Moonlight, and then Sandalwood Incense, King of Beautiful Mountains, Crown of Mount Sumeru, Brilliant like Mount Sumeru, Color of the Moon, Right Recollection, Free of Defilement, Non-Attachment, Dragon Deva, Nocturnal Light, Peaceful and Brilliant Peak, Immovable Ground, Exquisite Beryl Flower, Golden Beryl Luster, Gold Treasury, Flaming Light, Fiery Origin, Earth Shaking, Image of the Moon, Sound of the Sun, Flower of Freedom, Glorious Light, Miraculous Power of the Ocean of Enlightenment, Water Light, Great Fragrance, Free of Dust and Defilement, Abandoning Enmity, Flame of Jewels, Beautiful Peak, Heroic Stance, Merit Possessing Wisdom, Outshining the Sun and Moon, Beryl Light of the Sun and Moon, Supreme Beryl Light, Highest Peak, Flower of Enlightenment, Brightness of the Moon, Sunlight, King of the Colors of Flowers, Moonlight on the Water, Dispelling the Darkness of Ignorance, Practice of Removing Hindrances, Pure Faith, Storehouse of Good, Majestic Glory, Wisdom of the Dharma, Voice of the Phoenix, Roar of the Lion, Cry of the Dragon, and Dwelling in the World. All these Buddhas have already passed into nirvana. End quote. The second important footnote refers to the sutra that tells us again for the second time that Dharmakara was not an ordinary practitioner when he resolved to make his vows. The first time at the beginning of the story of Dharmakara, Shakyamuni mentions, quote, having superior intelligence, courage, and wisdom, he distinguished himself in the world. End quote. The next important footnote refers to the 6 paramitas or perfections, called the 6 types of practices by which a bodhisattva achieves Buddhahood. These are 1. Charity or generosity or dana, 2. Discipline and proper behavior or sila, 3. Perseverance, 4. Diligence, 5. Meditation, and 6. Higher wisdom or prajna. The next important footnote refers to the smaller Amida Sutra, which was preached at a different time and location, namely the Jeta Grove of Amitabha's garden in Shravasti. The next important footnote refers to the words Amitabha, which in English is also used to represent both Amitabha or infinite light and Amitayus or infinite life. The next important footnote refers to the term Koti, which is used in ancient India to express a high numerical value, equivalent to 100,000, 10 million, or 100 million. The next important footnote explains that encircling adamantine mountains are the outermost mountain ranges encircling a Sumeru world, which contains a representative of each of the 6 planes of samsaric existence. The next important footnote explains that the heaven of the four kings is located on the slopes of Mount Sumeru. The next important footnote explains the heaven of the 33 gods is located on the top of Mount Sumeru. The next important footnote explains that Yama heaven is located above the heaven of the 33 gods and above Mount Sumeru. The last important footnote explains that, according to the Buddha's teaching, there are an infinite number of world systems where rebirth takes place. These were classified into three categories. One small universe, which is traditionally called a small 1,000 world. It consists of 1,000 worlds. Each single world, sometimes called a Sumeru world, contains the various realms or dimensions of hells, hungry ghosts, animals, humans, asuras, and gods. 2. One middle universe, which is traditionally called a medium 1,000 world. It consists of 1,000 small universes, or 1,000 small 1,000 worlds. 3. One large universe, which is traditionally called a great 1,000 world. It consists of 1,000 middle universes, or 1,000 medium 1,000 worlds. Namo Amida Butsu.